You know that feeling when you walk into a room and the conversation just stops? That's the PGA Tour right now. Something happened behind closed doors during the Open, and it wasn't one guy losing his temper. It was 11 players, all putting their names on a single document aimed straight at the CEO, Brian Rolap. This wasn't a quiet email. This was a formal ultimatum. And here's what separates it from every blow-up we've seen before. It was never about one player's ego or a rough Sunday. It was about the future of the tournaments you grew up watching. Think Canadian Open. Think Colonial. Those events carry history, and under Rolap's new plan, they were about to get shoved into a second-tier category, smaller purses, smaller stage, smaller everything. The actual break didn't happen in front of cameras. It happened in a closed-door meeting, where sources say the CEO basically told one of the biggest stars in the sport to fall in line. One sentence. That's all it took. Those 11 players didn't just walk out annoyed, they walked out and started building something that would make the tour's chief answer to them. The timing wasn't an accident. The Open is the biggest stage the sport has. Striking there meant maximum pressure, maximum eyes. Rolap wanted to split the calendar into two tiers and basically turn golf into the NFL. The players saw their tournaments getting erased, decades of history turned into an afterthought. This was never really about money. It was about control, who gets to decide where this sport goes next. These players didn't just vent to their agents. They brought in lawyers and documented everything, because they knew Rolap's people would try to make it disappear. They wanted a paper trail nobody could argue with. And here's what's still keeping insiders up at night. Some of these names will surprise you, others won't, but together they're the backbone of the entire tour. This wasn't outsiders causing trouble. This was the center of the sport, pushing back. So what did they actually write? Rewind to the moment Rolap took the commissioner's chair. He came out of the NFL, a league built on total control of the schedule, the money, the story. His plan: bring that machine to golf. Within months he unveiled a calendar overhaul starting in 2028. 2 tiers. A championship series with massive purses and tiny fields, and a challenger series that got everything left over, smaller checks, less airtime. On paper it read like progress, but underneath, something didn't sit right. The challenger series came with strings. Only top finishers from the year before got guaranteed entry. Tournaments that had survived on the calendar for generations were suddenly getting demoted. Look at the Canadian Open, over a century of tradition, multiple-time winner on its trophy. Under this plan, it drops into the lower tier. Same fate for Colonial. Same risk for Phoenix. These aren't line items. They're institutions, and the players knew it before anyone said it out loud. One of the sport's biggest names figured it out first, and unlike most players, who don't bite the hand that feeds them, he wasn't going to sit on it. In the fall, he fired the first warning shot, not a lawsuit, just an offhand line in an interview overseas. "I want to play golf when I want to play golf." Sounded casual. Insiders knew better. One veteran writer called it exactly what it was, a line drawn in the sand. That was the first crack. The real explosion came months later. Right before the US Open, asked about the plan in a press conference, he didn't hedge. He called the new series a glorified minor league event. That comment lit the fuse. He wasn't alone for long. Behind the scenes, one of the most decorated players in the sport's history, always seen as a company man, was reportedly furious his concerns kept getting brushed off. He started making quiet calls, asking other players what they thought. The answer came back loud and clear. They felt the same way. By summer, a small circle was meeting privately in hotel rooms after tournaments, away from cameras. Everyone had the same story: concerns dismissed, a growing sense the plan threatened their income and everything the sport stood for. The group grew to 10. They needed one more to make 11. The turning point came at a private dinner days after the US Open. No agents, no press, just honesty about what scared them. One said bluntly, "If nobody stops this now, in 5 years there's no Canadian Open worth watching." Another added they'd be well paid but reduced to hired hands with no say. That night, they agreed to draft a real document, formal, lawyer-reviewed, spelling out exactly what they wanted and what would happen if it got ignored. The current world number one was one of the loudest voices in that room, despite saying almost nothing publicly. He signed early, a signal that even the top-ranked player in the world felt threatened by where things were heading. A recent major champion signed next, someone who avoids controversy but had been telling close friends something had to change. When the group approached him, he didn't hesitate. 2 committee members with real inside knowledge of leadership's plan signed without blinking. One had spent months quietly building alliances across the locker room. The other, a 2-decade veteran, recognized exactly how dangerous this shift could be. The younger core brought just as much conviction. One rising player had already gone public about players losing control of their schedules and family time. He said he'd been waiting for someone to organize something like this. Another respected committee member used his standing to help hold the coalition together. A longtime veteran added a different kind of weight, decades on tour, convinced this shift crossed a line worth fighting over. The moment he heard about the document, he asked to read it and signed on the spot. 2 final signatures rounded out the list: a steady, reliable winner who represents the tour's working middle class more than its headliners, proving this wasn't just an elite movement, and a fiery veteran known for wearing his emotions on his sleeve, whose intensity matched his commitment to the game. 11 players. United. Rolapp got the document on a Monday morning, and his office reportedly went straight into crisis mode, emergency calls, reaching out to agents, hunting for cracks in the coalition. But the players had planned for exactly that. No individual negotiations. Every conversation had to go through their lawyer, killing Rolapp's usual playbook of picking people off one by one. For the first time in his tenure, he faced a united front he couldn't break. The following weeks were tense. Some insiders said Rolap was ready to cave. Others said he'd suspend anyone who refused the new schedule. But benching 11 of the sport's biggest names would be a disaster. Sponsors walk, ratings tank. So he tried a middle path, keep the two-tier structure, but add a 5-year grandfather clause protecting traditional events. He thought that would be enough. It wasn't. The players rejected it outright. 5 years wasn't permanent, and an advisory vote wasn't real power. They wanted permanent protection and a binding vote. Rolap had clearly underestimated their resolve, and that's when this became a genuine standoff. Neither side wants to blink. A mid-season disruption is suddenly very real. That's where things sit today. No resolution, no white flag, just two sides staring each other down. What happens next depends on whether Rolap can offer something real without looking like he lost, and whether the players can hold their unity once the pressure ramps up. If he tries to isolate the ringleaders, expect the rest to rally harder. If the players go public, fans split into camps, and they already have. Look at labor disputes in other sports, entire seasons wiped out, fans losing what they loved. Golf has never faced that, but this ultimatum brings the nightmare closer than ever. If the players walk, next season is genuinely in jeopardy. They know exactly what they're risking: endorsements, relationships, maybe worse. But they've decided watching their tournaments slowly disappear is the worst outcome. That's not arrogance. That's conviction. Rolap isn't free to just fold either. He answers to the investors who poured billions into this, and they want growth, not nostalgia. He's stuck between players demanding tradition and owners demanding modernization, a spot he put himself in by pushing this plan through without real buy-in. Now the bill is coming due. Fans have already picked sides. Some call the players heroes standing up to corporate overreach. Others call them overpaid athletes who should just play golf. That split is exactly what makes this story impossible to look away from. It's not about golf anymore, it's about who actually holds the power. Here's the bottom line. The era where the commissioner made every call unchecked is over. The players have drawn a line and shown they're willing to defend it. Rolap may be a sharp operator, but he's never faced a rebellion like this, and these 11 have already proven they won't back down. For fans, that's thrilling and unsettling at once. Thrilling because you're watching real drama unfold. Unsettling because the tournaments you love might not survive it intact. But one thing is certain, the sport you grew up watching is changing right now, and this is the turning point. The players have made their point, they're not just employees. They're the reason anyone tunes in, and they won't be quietly overruled. Rolap has the investors. The players have each other, a shared cause, and a genuine love of the game. That's a hard combination for any executive to outmaneuver. So here's where we land, right on the edge of something historic. Does Rolap come back with a better offer? Dig in? Try to pick off the weakest link? Whatever he chooses, these 11 are ready, their document, their lawyer, their unity, and millions of fans who care about this game just as much as they do. My honest take, this is a fight for the soul of the game. Whose side are you on, the players, or the CEO? Drop your take in the comments, and subscribe to see how this one ends.